Hi, and welcome back to the next episode of Up to 5 Minutes, where in less than 5 minutes, you'll be updated in all the happenings in the world of real estate and mortgage lending, and hopefully you'll sound a little bit smarter at your next cocktail party. I'm Eric Forte, a licensed real estate agent with KW Empower in Center City, Philadelphia.
And I'm Alton O'Shields, a loan officer with Rate, also in Philadelphia. So Eric, in previous episodes, we talked a little bit about what agents do, but what are some core services that listing agents provide?
That's a great question, Alton. And today we're going to talk about the core services that a listing agent provides to the homeowner who is selling their property. And there is some overlap with what a buyer's agent does, but we'll get to that in another episode. But I would say that the four core services for a listing agent is going to be a consultant, a marketer, a negotiator, and a closer. And today we're going to talk about what a consultant does specifically.
So when you put on that consultant hat and you meet with the seller, what kind of value are you trying to bring?
The goal of the consultant service is to explain processes, answer questions, and set expectations. The majority of your consultant work is going to be prior to listing the home, and a lot of the groundwork is going to be laid in that initial meeting you have with the homeowner. So setting expectations, answering all of your client's questions, and letting them know how you perform your duties and job responsibilities really is extremely important as far as getting everyone on the same page and pulling in the same direction.
So I'm a seller and we're about to have our initial meeting for the listing presentation. What should I expect? What kind of processes should I assume is going to happen when you have your consultant hat on?
Excellent question again. What we're going to do is we're going to go through a walkthrough of the home, and I'm going to survey it and determine a needs analysis. For example, is there a specific staging plan that's going to be needed? Does certain furniture need to be removed? Does certain bedrooms or bathrooms need to be painted, or does there need to be remodeling work? All of that stuff is really open and specific to the property, but that's the first thing that we're gonna do. Get a sense of where the house is and where it needs to be in order for it to sell and net the seller the most amount of money.
So you just had your walkthrough. What's the next step in the plan?
Well, remember, one of the goals of wearing the consultant hat is to explain processes. So that's where myself and the homeowner are going to sit down, and I'm going to explain what I do as an agent, how I do it, how I bring value so that the seller is netting the most amount of money possible, and we're going to set a communication plan. The number one complaint really in any service industry is lack of communication or lack of consistent communication. So it's really important that expectations are set, how, when, and what method of communication you're going to have with each other. So again, everyone's pulling in the same direction.
And what I hear and what I like is processes, goals, and communication. A lot it's repeated over, and that's really important. I feel like very early on to get that out of the way and establish, because it makes a much smoother process. I see that on our end as well.
Selling a house isn't just sprinkling fairy dust and then all of a sudden it's on the market and it's sold. It takes work, and it takes a plan, and it takes strategy. And the best way to do that and to make it an efficient and stress-free process, and again, net the seller the most money possible that the market will allow, is to have a plan, strategy, and have the seller and their agent working in concert together.
So in addition to the process, what are some other things that you talk about?
Well, that's really, you're going to get into the nuts and bolts of that specific property. So we're going to go through a valuation analysis. What is the state of the current market? What are the comparative homes and where they sold for and what they're selling at the time? Then we're going to discuss pricing strategy. And I'm going to do another video on this. The way I look at it is there's three different types of pricing strategies: aspirational, analytical, and competitive. And aspirational is really kind of what the seller hopes to get. Analytical is what the comps and comparative sales are telling you the house is worth. But competitive, which is where I try to be, is what is going on at the moment that the house is going to hit the market. Because when you meet with your agent for the first time, you're not putting it on the market for the next day. So why are you deciding on a price that day? It usually takes 2 to 4 weeks for a home to be ready for market. So you want to price 4 weeks in the future. So you kind of you can have a range and idea of what the price strategy is. Right before the home hits the market, that's when you want to decide the price so it reflects the market on that specific day.
Yeah, I think that's a common misconception too. People think either the seller or the listing agent determine what the house is worth, but it's not true. It's what the market says at that particular time. You can't use comps from 2 years ago, and you can't use comps from the future, obviously. So it's about that specific time in that specific neighborhood.
Absolutely, because the market fluctuates from day to day. Right.
And so after that kind of initial presentation is over, are there any final things that you talk about?
Yes, absolutely. One, you want to identify and drill down what the target market is for that specific property. For example, if you are selling a 1-bedroom condo, it really doesn't make sense to market to a family or household size of 4 or 5, right? They're not in the market for that type of home. So you want to identify who is the ideal buyer for your property and then market specifically to them. And then, as we talked about in other videos, I would go over the National Association of Realtors settlement and discuss and go over with the seller exactly how that's to their advantage and how that settlement can put more money in their pocket. That'll do it for this episode of Up to 5 Minutes. Thanks for spending less than 5 minutes with us today. Future episodes, I'm going to go over those other 3 core services that agents provide, and so stay tuned.
And make sure to follow us on LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube to stay up to date. I'll be back a little bit this week with what to look for on a pre-approval as a seller or listing agent.
And leave some comments and questions.